Great to speak with you. I'm such a huge fan, and I love Dying for Sex so much.
Oh,
It's like
thank
my
you.
my favorite show of the year, and I think
Mm.
it's one of the best limited series I've ever seen. And
Oh,
you're
wow.
fantastic in it.
Thank you.
Yeah. What attracted you to the role of neighbor guy? And do you imagine what his real name might be? Like, do you have?
Uh, yeah, no, I don't care what his name is. Not important to me. Not a real actor. I and what attracted it to the fact that it was a true story, and an amazing true story. Just because something's true doesn't mean that it's going to be amazing, but this certainly was. I mean, and then the opportunity to work with Michelle Williams and Shannon Murphy and Kim Rosenstock and Liz Merriweather. I mean, it was just impossible to say no for me.
Yeah, it's such a fantastic role, and yeah, like I said, I'm like a huge fan of it. So did you listen to the podcast? Like I read that Neighbor Guy is an amalgamation of like many real life characters.
Yeah. No, I didn't deliberately because I didn't because since it was taking place so much in the sort of antechamber between life and death, I really didn't want to have too much other stuff intruding on me and sort of details or any baggage or anything that would prevent me from kind of just really, really being myself in it and really reacting to everything honestly. So yeah, no, I didn't listen to it on purpose.
Yeah, did you almost want to like make it feel like it was fictionalized, even though you knew that there was a lot of, that this is based on a true story?
I would say I wanted it to feel as real as possible. I knew the facts might not be true, but I needed the feelings to be extremely brutally true. So that was the sort of order of the day, I think.
Yeah. What I love about Neighbor Guy is that, on other shows he'd be treated as the weird guy who gets turned on by, getting kicked in the crotch. Here he's
Yeah.
her romantic love interest. That's
Mm.
interesting to me. I was wondering if that was interesting to you. Like, did you that it like it validates this kink community in a way, that so many times it's, seen as weird.
So for me, like there's really no slash limited overlap between me and neighbor guy and what gets his motor running, so to speak. And then also, if I found out I had a terminal diagnosis, I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect I'd do stuff very differently from Molly. That said, we can all imagine what it would be like to receive that news and what it would be like to be with somebody who's going through that journey. So for me, it was almost like, I don't know, if neighbor guy plays the guitar sexually and sensually, then like me, Rob Delaney, plays the trombone. And they're different instruments, but we're playing the same song, which is helping this woman through a sacred and difficult and painful and at times beautiful journey. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but I did manage to compare my trombone, my sexuality to a trombone.
I love that. What was it like filming that scene with Michelle, where, you're gonna get kicked in the crotch, basically.
Um, well, it was fun. It was also technical because you have to be
I'm
careful
sure.
doing that.
Yeah.
Then also, that might have been the second scene we shot. So we didn't even really know each other that well yet. And so that was very interesting to really hit the ground running in this show, and probably a good idea because then it made it, it just we just broke the seal and started right off doing crazy stuff, and oh, and of course that scene was easy compared to some of the more emotional heavy lifting that would come later, which was. The most difficult parts of this job were certainly emotional, not physical, even though the physical was challenging.
I was gonna say it is a very physical role where you're on the ground, you're just in your
Yeah.
underwear. Was that like something that yeah, was that a challenge? It was like kind of having all of this vulnerability out there that you're emotional, you're physically naked in some ways.
Mhm.
What was that like?
I mean, in some ways, it makes it easier, right? Because if you're in extremis, sort of in a few different ways, it makes it easier to get in touch with genuine emotions that you might not spend time with in an average day, you know? So in that sense, and what with the mind and the body being so connected, when your body is in these more compromised positions, it's easier to bear yourself emotionally. So I suspect I'm lucky that the job had physical challenges because that probably made it a little easier to open the door to the emotional ones. If we'd have just been like seated next to each other on chairs the whole time, you know, it could have been harder to access some of the necessary emotions. So yeah, I'm glad that the physical and emotional complemented each other in this.
Yeah. Um, do you think that neighbor guy is someone who would have ever approached Molly if she hadn't like yelled at him about the garbage? Would he have found her attractive without ever really, pushing himself outside of like kind of to approach her?
So I think that he probably would have found her attractive, like if he saw like a static image of her, be like, pretty lady. But I think probably they wouldn't have gotten together because, you know, the way that they annoyed each other wouldn't have necessarily led itself to what winds up being a very beautiful romantic relationship. Um, because they really do wind up in a place that is quite beautiful and tender, you know, and some of the more pyrotechnic ways that they first physically communicated fades more to the background, and it's more about hugging and kissing, you know. So it's a very nice journey for both of them, and yeah, I'm glad they got to have it.
Oh yeah, I just love their romance so much. And it's,
Mhm.
it's more than about them finding, what do they say? Like freak matches each other's freak. And I don't want to say that because that's not what it is, but it's just like,
Mhm.
finding that person who understands you. And I was thinking like, why do you think Molly and Neighbor Guy ultimately like it's more than just the kinky nature. What do you think really unites them and makes them fall in love?
Well, I think they're both in similar life stations where, you know, I mean, let's just say Michelle and I are, as a people, are both in our 40s, and, you know, and I'm closer to 50, and I know that for me, I'm learning like, wait, you know, I'm well decades into adulthood. Um, I differ from neighbor guy in that unless he has an off-screen family we don't know about, he doesn't have any kids. I have a bunch of kids, and you know, in my late 40s, I'm like, wait a minute, I still have these bad habits that I have to shed. I still have things that I can learn, you know, and so I think Molly, of course, through the fact that she has a terminal diagnosis, it's very understandable that she's doing a lot of self-examination and examination of our relationship. But I think because she intersects with neighbor guy who has more of a sheltered existence and is like, you know, kind of built some walls for himself, he really follows her example of like breaking down walls and barriers and excavating emotional stuff that he thought maybe he would just leave in a drawer. And so she certainly helped him tremendously. I mean, Neighbor Guy has a much, much brighter future at the end of this show than he did before he met Molly. So he'll grieve, of course, but she's given him an unbelievable gift and shown a wonderful example to help him blossom and become a more open and trusting and loving and daring person. So and he gives her um, a pretty rich buffet of love and sex and honesty and vulnerability. And so it's their relationship winds up being really quite a beautiful two-way street. Although I would submit that he's the greater beneficiary for a bunch of reasons.
Right. Yeah. You know, d- I'm dying to know what he's thinking, you know, after he you know, leaves her. How is he processing this loss? We see, you know, Nikki throughout the
Hmm.
whole show is like, you know, kind of proactively thinking about losing her friend. But like when Molly
Right.
says like, I don't want to, you know, I don't want you to see me like this. What is
Yeah.
he doing after that? Like, what's his life like after he leaves Molly in that hospital room?
So I think she has primed him for a way better life, with greater emotional honesty and willingness to open up and get hurt sometimes and hurt other people, but not wallow in shame. I mean, look, if we're alive and in relationships, we're going to hurt people sometimes, not because we're monsters. We can't help it. And
Yeah.
you work through that, and that's the measure of a good relationship is dealing with those things. So she's, yeah, the next woman, or maybe one to be weird and cry with, be like, my girlfriend died. But then maybe the one after that, then he'll be better positioned to really fall truly in love in a long-term way.
Yeah. This I love the tone of this show, how it's so funny, but it's also, you know, I'm laughing and crying. Was there a
Yeah.
specific scene that was like challenging for you to kind of balance that tone, or just a specific scene in general that was one that you point to as that you're most proud of for the hard work you
Most
did?
proud of. I mean, my favorite stuff is the final stuff that they do together. That's the seventh episode of the show,
Yeah.
the penultimate episode of the show, when he's kind of sneaks into the hospital and they have an incredible, beautiful series of experiences together. Um, yeah, far and away, that was both the most rewarding to shoot and the most difficult. I mean, I cried a lot on and off screen. It was very sad and very difficult. Um, in fact, I had a bit of a break in filming blocks, just the way they scheduled it, where I did all my stuff, and then had a not insignificant chunk of time, and I knew I was going to have to go back and watch the peerless Michelle Williams um, deteriorate and prepare to die, and I was like so worried and scared to go in and do that, and I was right to be because it was very difficult. Um, and yeah, that was not easy stuff to do, and but we did it in service of a pretty wonderful story and as a tribute, to the real life friendship of Molly and Nikki. So it was worth it.
Yeah. Oh God, I love this show so much. Oh, this was such a nice conversation. Your work is just incredible, and I've been a fan of yours for like years too. So it's so
Oh,
nice.
thank you, Megan.
Yeah, so nice to talk to you, and congratulations on it. It's just wonderful.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'm glad I didn't get killed by a hailstone before I
Yes, I'm
called.
glad you did too. Stay safe over there.
Alrighty,
Thank
thanks so
you so
much.
much.
Take care.
Bye.